out of apartment 5B.
You're now tuned into the Apartment 5B podcast, where we chop it up about hip-hop, R&B, sports, love and life. Hosted by Kill.
What's good? You are tuned to Apartment 5B podcast, hosted by your man, Kel. I got my squad with me, in effect, as always, the dopest co-host walking the planet Earth, P. What's going on?
Not a whole lot, Kel. So good to be here.
No doubt. I got my man, Tone, from Enter the Dome. What's going on, baby?
What's good, everyone? It's been a minute. It's all love.
Hey, good to have you back. Got my brother, Veg, out of BK. What's going on, fam?
It's football season, y'all. The hell off my lawn.
Take that off.
You already know what it is, bro. It's like I was saying earlier. That's all I got in Philly right now. That's all I got. It ain't the Sixers. It ain't nothing going on over there. So it's hard. They go on one side of the street and a love affair on the other side of the street. So prayerfully, we win this chip this year. Let's jump right into it. Look, a couple of weeks ago, I was on Tone's podcast and we were chopping it up, and we came across this topic. And I'll always say this: a moment in time. Like, I'll be like, yo, there was a moment in time that such and such was the dopest MC walking the planet Earth. He could have been for a week, a month, a year. It doesn't matter. For a moment in time, this person was dope as hell. But a lot of those people never end up on those GOAT lists. They never end up as one of the people that everybody talks about. But it's just for a moment in time, they were dope. We're going to be looking at our top 5 people. Porsche being a Jodeci nigga, I'm sure she probably has about 9 or 10 on her list because doesn't follow directions. And then we're also going to be looking at R&B too, if anybody has any. P, ladies first as always. Why don't you set us off? Who's one of your people who for a moment in time was dope as hell?
I've got Da Brat as my number one. And the reason for that, and I would say it was probably between 94 to about 95. That's when I would say she was very dope. I mean, she had Functified was a dope album for me. I love that album. And then not only that, she appeared on a lot of remixes for R&B tracks. And she was kind of not only in demand, but she really added a lot of dopeness to those tracks. So for me, I remember, and don't forget, like Ladies Night, right? Not Tonight, Ladies Night, or whatever that track was with all the chicks. Da Brat was on there too. Like, she was very sought after. So I have to say Da Brat. I mean, I don't hear people talk about Da Brat very often unless it's very tapered. So it'll be about female MCs and then female MCs in the 90s. So you kind of like are steering the conversation towards Da Brat. But naturally, I don't really hear much about it. But Da Brat, I love Da Brat, and I think she's dope still. Like, I still enjoy her albums.
I love how you're saying Da Brat. Like, I say Da Brat, you're like that. Like Da Brat. Like, it sounds like a gunshot. Like that. Like, you know what I mean? But I love how you say it because I'm just like Da Brat, and you're like Da Brat. Da Brat. Say it again. Say it.
Da Brat.
Yeah, Da Brat. Like that. Like, you know what I mean? But
no one's gonna be able to unhear that, Kill. Way to go! Everybody listening
I'm sorry. You're right.
All good.
One of the things, and it's so funny that you say Da Brat, because one of the things that we were talking about behind camera was we're gonna be doing a show kind of looking at hip hop versus rap. You know, is there a difference? What the difference is, and all that. Vay, tell me this, man. Was Rap Attack still going when you were doing strictly hip hop?
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me this. For me, and I was telling Tone, for people watching, and y'all hear about this on the upcoming show, for me, it was the line that was drawn between hip hop and rap was because I hosted a hip hop show called Strictly Hip Hop, and our competition was a show called Rap Attack on 92Q. But it was so crazy that my co-host Sam was the co-host at Rap Attack, and it was like we had a meet, like, yo, how the fuck you gonna go work for the competition? But it didn't matter because the competition didn't play the music we played. So Rap Attack played Nelly, Ja Rule, the Brat, stuff like that. We did not play any of that stuff. So it was like, nah, let Sam live. Like, yo, that's a dope internship. That's a dope look. Let her, do that. Now, if we were in head-to-head competition, it probably would have been, yo, Sam, you got to pick, because you probably going to be taking our shit over there, or, whatever. But did you ever feel like, was there a line drawn in the sand for you coming from the same mind state, or like, how did you look at hip hop versus rap, or did you? And I don't want to get too much into it because I want to do the show, but I'm sure I know that there's somebody watching like the Brat, like that's not hip hop, like. But I wanted to know what did you feel about that with the Rap Attack? And I never thought it was a coincidence. Like, they play rap music. The name of y'all show is Rap Attack. The name of our show is Strictly Hip Hop. But how did you feel about that?
Well, I kind of walked in with the competitive mindset anyway, because they were like, quote unquote, the rival station, because, to some people it's all hip hop or it's all rap. But people who know the two shows know there was a distinct difference in the audience and the music, right, DJ and everything. So they were more like commercial radio. I think for me, what I started to bring was, I felt like we could play a Ja Rule cut, but we're not gonna play what they play, right? Okay. We're gonna take the Murdergram joints like that with Ja Rule on it, the joints that fit Strictly Hip Hop. And even if it's the Brat, right? Like if the Brat got her single out, but there's a tough record on there that speaks to Strictly Hip Hop, we'll play that one, because they're never gonna play that one. Right. So for the most part, I kind of kept the like trying to be the counterpart to what they did there, even though there was a certain level of competition, which got real crazy. We tell that story one day. But
you find out niggas was about to rumble after I left the show.
No, they wasn't gonna do shit. I was just be 100. They wasn't gonna do a goddamn thing. We were reckless. Right. But at the same time, we all went to Morgan, but I think, they just did things differently. We had a certain level, even you, right? We had a certain level, and Vinny and everybody. We had a certain level of freedom with the programming and the structure of what we played and exclusives. They had red tape on some things, right? Like they may have wanted to play that joint, but they're like, we can't play that. You got to get this amount of spins and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, for me, that was the separation. But in general, I know what you mean, even as a fan. Because even to this day, right, there's certain people I rock with that I kind of look at them as like rap artists. And I just like it because it's catchy. And then there's the dudes where I just want straight up hip hop. So
right. And I had to say, I also said for me, I looked at rappers as people who aren't nice. Like we were talking about Ja Rule before we jumped on. I'm like, yo, to me, Ja could spit. Back in them Blunt, when he was on Blunt Records with Cash Money Click and all that, like Irv just had him go that way. You know what I mean? So even with the Brat, I've never liked the Brat album, but when I hear Brat do a feature, she kills that shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like the joint she got with Missy, Sock It To Me, like, I love that shit. Like the joint she got on Total, you know what I mean? Like, she has features, and I'm like, yo, shorty kills it. Never liked the Brat album because I just feel like Jermaine Dupri wasn't never gonna make the music that we would play on Strictly Hip Hop for the most part. But I think the Brat is nice. So I was just saying all that to say, for people watching, that's my, that's how I look at it. But upcoming show was Strictly Hip Hop. I don't went back to 889. Upcoming show, Department 5B, will be hip hop versus rap. What does it look like? Because I'm sure there's people out there, like I know Tone doesn't really decipher between the two. You know what I mean? So, and I'm like, maybe I'm just that way because we were in this, I don't want to say radio battle, or we were in this battle, but it was kind of just distinctively drawn for me like that. So now I feel you with that portion with the Brat. The first person that I got up is Grand Poobah, man. You know what I mean? I've always said, for a time and space, and if you follow me on Twitter, we chop it up in person, you'll always hear me say, for a moment in time, such and such was the dopest MC walking the planet Earth. I don't know how long, I don't know what day, but he was the dopest. I would probably say Poobah from 91 to 93. I want to say from the first time I saw the video for Wake Up. And I was like, yo, who is this dude? Like, I know I saw the video before I heard the album, and I was just like, yo, this dude is nice. Like, who is this? Then the funny thing is, Grand Poobah, there was a Grand Poobah in this group from Jersey called the Crown Rulers. And so I'm like, yo, that ain't that Grand Poobah. So that threw me for a minute. But after hearing, the brand Nubians joint, I was sold. And then on top of that, he had so many solo cuts on the joint. Who can get busy like this, man? Like, it sounded like, step to the rear. Like, it sounded like he was just prone for it. And then, I mean, just some of the features. I mean, he had the joint on the brand new heavies. Who makes the loop? To this day, I use that quote. If the show ain't for bro, then you won't see. If the show ain't for dough, then you won't see the bro. Grandman, just as usual. So let me slow down because I know I'm confusing y'all. I mean, Barry's what's the 411? I mean, that's just, that's classic. Fat Joe's Watch the Sound, the Beat Nuts, Are You Ready? Pete and CL, Skins, Heads Don't Curse. I mean, and again, like the other thing I say about Puba, I was always excited to see what this nigga was sporting because I knew he was gonna have some ill low or some ill hill figure. Like to this day, I'm still trying to get that Alpine shirt he had on Yo MTV Raps doing What's the 411 with Mary. That shit go for like $1,800. I ain't paying no $1,800 for no shirt. But one of these days I will find it on eBay or on a thrift store somewhere. I'm gonna get that shirt before I leave this planet. But yeah, I think Puba was just one of the illest ever. Hey, what do you think about Puba?
Man, listen, you talking all of that. First time I heard and saw him was on Masters of Ceremony Sexy video.
I never saw that. Like I never knew about the Masters of Ceremonies.
That joint Sexy. When I heard his verse, I was like, yo, who's that? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Because he stood out. And when you watch the video too, Kill, because it's on YouTube. You watch the video. Get that.
And it's called what?
It's called Sexy.
All right.
It's that you heard it before, trust me. But in the video, he even stand out in the video. It's like looking at the future of what dudes would do with hip hop. He's stepping out the whip. He fresh. He got I think he had gazelles on or something. Like he just matched.
And he's stepping out the whip to kick it to a chick.
I don't remember. I just remember him being in the whip when it came to his part. But even his rhyming style seemed futuristic at that point in time. Like we hadn't heard anybody kind of cool and laid back that wasn't like Slick Rick or somebody like that.
Right.
But yeah, like you mentioned, and even after Brand Nubian with the and you say New York City peaked the 2000 joint.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same dude from the 80s. Like, right. In a group, out of group, solo features. Grand Puba was the man back then. So, I agree, man.
I think the only reason why I kind of didn't click all the way is because I know I liked Real to Real, his solo album. Like, I probably give it a good 3.5, 4 mics, but I know everybody was expecting a 5 mic classic because at that point in time he was the dopest MC. So I think for a lot of people, when they didn't get the 5 mics, they kind of were just like done with it. Whereas I still fuck with. There's a lot of joints I like on there. And then I think by 2000, I think that whole sing-songy shit he used to do just kind of was getting played out. Like, when I think 2000 sets off and it's like this dude is like singing La 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 means Grand Poo, and it's just like, yo, dog, you singing the whole fucking, like, nah, man, like, that was cool back then, 91, bro. It's 2005 now, nigga. Niggas is getting shot on the block, and you up here singing the Delphonics, and then you got a Kid in the video with a little of this and a little of that. No disrespect, the Kid, love Kid all day long, but I think that's what it was. Pete, what did you feel about Grand Poo? Did you feel like you agree with that pick?
Yeah, I mean, Don't Curse is my favorite posse cut of all time. I think they all were stellar. Grand Puba for sure had one of the dopest verses on there. So yeah, I'm with you. Great pick.
And Tom, what about you?
Oh, for real quick, first let me say I agree with Porsche on the Brat, man. The Brat is a dope MC, dope flow, had dope energy. She came in at a good time too for the South and Atlanta with JD. I know she's from Chicago, but you know what I mean. And first, we had to go platinum, which is a huge landmark because before that, it was all gold, like Salt and Pepper and a few other people went gold. But the Brat went platinum. That's huge. You know what I'm saying? So then that B-side with Biggie and Bad Boy, the Brat was very dope, man. So she definitely had a moment. For Puba, man, let me tell you, real talk. I heard about 5 or 6 Puba joints recently, and Puba hasn't lost it, man. He still can really, really rap, man. He sounds really fresh on the mic, and I can't wait for people to hear Puba's joints, man, new joints, man, crazy, man. So, and he definitely had a moment, man, where he was one of the best rappers. And even when Brand Nubian got back together for Foundation, man, if you listen to some of his rhymes on that album, and even on Don't Let It Go to Your Head, listen to his verse and wordplay and flow on that song, man. He was still kind of head and shoulders above a lot of people at the time, man. Dude could really rap, even though 2000, like you said, was whatever, you know what I'm saying? As far as the MC, he's pretty much always been a dope MC for me.
Yeah. And his son rhymed too. His son is nice too. His son got some joints out too. So that's dope. Vay, what you got for your first joint?
All right, so I meant to ask you this before we went live, but I didn't just pick people who had a bunch of albums and had a moment. Some of these people who had they may have had one album, they may have had a mixtape and some freestyle.
Oh yeah.
But everybody was big on them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm
Vay, hold that for 1 second. I totally forgot I got R&B. My R&B dude was Al B. Shore. Al B. Shore was the fucking man, and to this day I need I think they may have done a behind the scenes work. I don't know how you go from Night and Day, which is a perfect 5 mic album, to me one of the greatest R&B albums ever. I love that album from beginning to end, to just that second album like Private Times and the whole nine, and it just I don't know if I've seen an artist go from just being one of, if not the best, to just nothing. Like you just never heard of Al. You just never heard from Al B again.
Hey, let me say something real quick. Real quick. First of all, I have Al B. Shore right here. His My In Effect Mode came out in 1988. He totally was killing shit. And he was on tour at the time with Bobby Brown and New Edition. You know what I'm saying? So but as far as the women and just his being hot, he was that dude for a minute. Like he brought the light skinned cats back to that Elder Bars type thing. You know what I'm saying? So he was.
See, I don't think they left. And I'm wondering, is the Bobby Brown the dark skin? Because this is when we came in style.
Got that
too.
So
I don't know if Bobby knocked him out the box. You know what I mean?
He might have, but to your point about Al B. Shore, in my opinion, I think that after his first album, Al B. Shore started going to the A&R mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like he was doing a whole bunch of production, writing for other artists, be it hip hop and R&B. And I think he kind of went almost away from the artist part, man. So you kind of saw that lacking on his follow up and songs after that, man. But because he was doing, Al B. Shore has a lot of work in the industry that people think he just had a dope debut album and that was it. No, dude produced, wrote a lot of songs. He's very important behind the scenes for a lot of careers, man, in Uptown and other places, man. Real talk.
Yeah, him and Kyle West did a lot together. But I just know when I brought that second album, I was hype as hell. And it was like, nah, this ain't it. Like, where's the Night and Day? Ooh, This Love Is So, The Rescue Me. Like, there's nothing. I think there was like maybe one song I liked on that second album. And I'm like, dog, how do you go from this to that? So, but for a minute, Al B. Shore was the hottest thing smoking out there in the world. And if people want to laugh, Google or YouTube like some old Al B. Shore like performances, because he be trying to dance, and that was not his. He's almost as bad as Mary in her dancing, and I want to say Mary's a better dancer than Al B. Shore, which says a fucking lot. So you ever need some joy in your day, go to YouTube and click that link for some old Al B. Shore performances, and you will laugh. I'm sorry, Vay, who you got up first?
I'm gonna go current, man.
Okay.
So God Cooks. I don't like. It's. I hate to say it, but it just feels like there was a point in time where, it was a lot of buzz, and then it kind of became overwhelming, right? Like it was like people ready to call that joint a classic at that point.
Mm-hmm. Shit, I do. I call it a classic.
Maybe you can at this point, right? And then just the label stuff, the delays, the hooks, and the random verses here and there, and I just feel like it's not the same. But at that point in time, there was nothing like him. You know what I'm saying? He was so unique and different. He was skillful at the same time. The production was right. It just felt like, it almost felt like a movement of one. Like whereas Griselda was kind of like Conway and Westside Gunn and all that. Right. It just kind of felt like, damn, he's he's all these other cats, but he's different in a way that's more exciting. And I don't know. Even sometimes when he does features, it's he still feel like that guy. But I think the momentum has died down because he hadn't released anything to follow up, and it might be too long. Because did that joint come out during the pandemic?
That's why I'm actually looking it up right now to see when that joint came
like
out.
2020.
That was 2020. So yeah, that's 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that this joint came out. That's crazy. I didn't even realize that shit was 3 years ago.
Right. And no album since, except for Stove Jesus Loves Us or whatever that shit is.
And I'm not mad at the EP. I'm just mad at some of the shit like the like you said, like, are we really starting this off with Stove Jesus Loves Me? Like, yo, bro, we can't, like, come on. We get it. But this is overkill now. Like, this is overkill. I think that's a great pick, bro, because you're right. I mean, I just think, especially now when all this momentum, and I know there was a lot of hoopla. Like, I think he was supposed to be signed with Rock, but I don't know if that was to Rock Marcy's label or the management. And then I saw this interview with him. I don't know if you saw with him and B-Dot and the dude Elliot from Rap Radar, and he kind of was throwing some shots at Rock. You know what I mean? Like on some old, like, yo, is Rock doing your next album? He was like, well, if Rock come with that heat, he was like, yo, I really didn't even like them beats. Like he was just throwing a lot of, like, because at this time he was down with Griselda now, so it seemed like he was throwing a lot of shots at Rock. And then, like, mysteriously the next day, that joint was up on Bandcamp, the EP.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, oh shit, did Rock leak this shit? Like, a word niggas like that? Okay, boom, well, here you go. You on Bandcamp. You know what I mean?
Right.
Type thing. So but again, even with that kind of label negotiations, I mean, drop something. Like, like, how do you go 3 years without dropping another follow-up project to that? You know what I mean?
And I can't see a dude like Westside Gunn sitting on it, so it has to be something else.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So that's the thing. And I mean, I was like, yo, him and Rock are just good. Like, I don't even need to hear him with nobody else. Like, I don't need him with, Conductor, We Have a Problem, and all these other people. Not saying they not dope, but him and Rock just fit. Like, even if y'all do the split, just let Rock do the beats. But yeah, I feel you, because for a moment in time.
You know what, Kill?
What's that?
3 years in this era is like 10 years.
Yeah.
You ain't never lied.
People gonna forget because it's the music is flooded 24/7 on the internet. So 3 years, though, that's a year is damn near too long nowadays. So you talking about 3 years? That's a lifetime in music in this era.
And it's funny you say that, because I'm like, damn, when that new Benny album coming out? And I mean, he just gave us Tana Talk 4 probably about a year ago, and I'm already like, where's the new Benny album? Like, I think that once a year is a good thing. I think once a year nowadays is a good way to kind of get the music out. To not, like, Conway be doing 4 or 5 a year, and I'm like, dog, it's too much. Like, give me a chance to miss you. What you say?
That's hard, though, when you think about people put a project together. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're expecting an album every year from some of these people. Since back in the day, artists might put an album out every 2 or 3 years, but that was normal in the 80s and 90s. But now we're expecting every so many months. You got to put at least a song out, a single, or mixtape or something.
But the hard part,
forget about
the hard part is, bro, is like, I was watching this Maxwell documentary, and he said something to the extent, I wrote this quote down somewhere, and he said, you live first and then you record second. And I feel like that's the problem. Like, you gotta live, like, if you want the album to be good, you gotta do some living. Like, nigga, like I said, like, look at it like this. Do you think if Tribe did People's Instinctives, Low End, and Midnight all in the same year, they would be the same album that we know of them now? Nah,
absolutely not.
You know what I mean? Because Tip hasn't grown. You haven't. Like, after People's Instinctives, I'm sure you went on tour and you saw some shit. You did some digging. It's like you heard the Chronic. Oh, we got to step our game up. Then you get Low End. Then you tour some more. Like, so it's like, I love that when Maxwell said that, like, yo, you live first and then you make the music. And I feel like that's the reason why a lot of hip hop is kind of dispensable and it doesn't stick as long, because, nobody's living. It's just like, yo, just put out more music. Just rap. Just keep rapping. Just keep rapping. But there's nothing, I haven't seen, I mean, imagine, bro, just imagine if all 4 of us went around the world, like how much more we'd have to talk about, or how much more maybe more books we would have read, or more, records we would have found that we wouldn't have found just sitting in Queens all day. Like, so that's the problem. Like, so, but I get it, because then Conway is like, yo, I make $500,000 when I do merch. And every time I drop an album, I can put out new merch. Yeah. So I also understand that point too, that because nobody's selling no money, or making no money off these records. Like, that's the thing. Like, nobody's doing that. I feel like I was talking to my man the other day about that, and I was like, bro, you can't get caught up in numbers. You can't get caught up in how many downloads you get, because nobody's moving these units. These niggas put out albums to sell merch and to tour. That's it. Yep. That's how they're making their money. Absolutely. It's the same way with these actors. I had never heard, before this strike, I had never heard of an actor talking about I'm broke or my residual checks are 28 cents. Never. Why? Because there's this view of actors in the entertainment world that you paid, that you good. You know what I mean? Now that they on strike, I'm hearing niggas on Orange is the New Black. They was like, yo, when that joint dropped, I was still working 3 jobs. I'm like, God damn, like you on Orange is the New Black, the biggest show on Netflix, and you still a bartender, and they ain't telling you that shit because the facade I gotta put up is I'm a successful actor. I'm good. Now that they on strike, now it's like, oh, we broke, I don't get no residuals, woo. I remember I saw Insecure on Netflix. First thing that came to mind, oh, that's dope. East and them gonna be getting some money. I see Amanda Seales talking about my residuals from, I don't even know why they cut me checks, because they ain't even $1. So again, if the music industry went on strike, then you'd have all these big name people talking about, we don't move no units, we barely can move 5,000 units with our, you know what I mean? But, and what happens is indie artists are looking at it like, man, I don't move no units, man, I'm about to quit. And I'm like, bro, you can't quit. Like, moving units is not the level of, you can't look at that as the level of success, because so much has changed in the music industry. You know what I mean? Like Raphael Sadiq said, he said, I woke up one day and I was like, oh shit, all my music is free. Like, that's essentially what happened. Like, do you know how hard it would be if I owned a cheesesteak spot and food was free everywhere, and I'm begging people like, yo, come in and please pay for my cheesesteak, and you're gonna get the same cheesesteak, even if Vegas says, no, I'm not paying for you, but I still gotta serve you the same cheesesteak. That, like, people can't, like, if food was free, nobody would be trying to pay for no food like that. There's a handful of people who would want to support and be like, this is a black-owned business, I want to support you. But the bulk of people are gonna be like, nigga, fuck your black-owned business. Give me everything on that tray for free. And that's what happens. For $9.99 a month, whatever you go with, Tidal, Spotify, Apple, you can listen to everybody's album from the beginning of time to now. But then here I come saying, yo, buy me and Vague's new album. People are gonna be like, why? I could listen to it free. And again, You're only gonna get a handful of people who want to support, so you can't do that. But I'm with you, Tone. Like, you cannot, Stove Guy can't go 3 years without dropping something. He gotta drop something. All right, Tone, who you out for your firstborn?
Man, I hate to say this name, is I really love this MC legend, but damn it, Slick Rick. 1988, The Great Adventure. Slick Rick took over the world. In junior high, I'm like, this is the best shit cracking. You know what I'm saying? Teenage Love, Children's Story, Mona Lisa, the Ruler's Back, whatever. Slick Rick
moment I feared. The moment I fucking feared.
And got love during the same time. Carrots, Rakim, and all Pup PE, everyone else is popping. Slick Rick came in with some swag, man, and he had his own lane. To me, at one point, I think Slick Rick was the most popular rapper in the world. But man, after The Great Adventures, the personal issues, then ended up getting locked up, and it was really over for Slick Rick. I mean, Behind Bars and all that stuff came out, but it didn't pop off. You know what I'm saying? Like, he had a couple little songs in like 94 or whatever, but it didn't really pop. And then, he came out in like 98, 99 with All the Storytelling, and we respect Slick. You know what I'm saying? He's always gonna be the ruler, but man, just think about how long he could have really been that dope without the personal issues, man. We really only got that 1988, 1989, maybe even a little early 90. People still respecting and rock with Slick Rick, but his reign was short, man.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened. I mean, we did a show on 5B about rappers' careers who got fucked up because they got locked up, and 90% of them was from Philly. Like I think Philly owns the fucking record for niggas like.
Yeah, probably do.
Like,
probably
I mean, for real, from Beans, Cassidy, PD, what's my man Roscoe, P Goldchain, like everybody just gets locked up.
And all of them.
Cool C Stave. I mean, like, yo, we hold the record for that. But yeah, like you said, if Rick would have been out, I really think his name would be mentioned amongst the greats. You know, because just by the time he got out, I can only imagine what being locked up with that did to you mentally. You know what I mean? Like knowing, damn, I was the fucking man. Now I gotta be in here, and then the joint to show when Russell came to go see him and everything like that, and you know, just a bad situation.
And I think also what's hard in regard to Slick Rick is he's a producer as well. A lot of people don't understand that during Great Adventures time, he produced some of the tracks on the album in the Bomb Squad, produced some tracks. So Slick Rick might have been able to make a living as a producer as well in the late 80s, early 90s. But again, the personal issues and getting locked up and shit like that. I did like that remix joint, the song with Warren G remix back in like 93, 94.
Yeah, Behind Bars joint. Yeah.
But yeah, man, Slick Rick, man,
But it felt like at that time it was like, all right, let's get him with whoever's hot. Okay, G-Funk shit is hot. Let's put him on some G-Funk shit. So it didn't even feel real because it was almost just like you just got out. We just gonna try and get you into whatever style. But yeah, Rick is a good pick. Rick is a dope pick. P, what you got up next, babe?
Talked about it a little bit before we recorded, but Ultramagnetic MCs. I think not only is Critical Beatdown a dope album, I like with Ultra Meg. I don't hear anyone except for Penny and Kill talk about Ultra Meg. I do every now and then, but Kill and Penny are like the most loyal fans ever. That album is not only dope, but like Sed G and Cool Keith got signed as a result of just their reputation in the streets and how much people like them, like non-mainstream, you know what I mean? Like without even being signed. So they were actually, I guess that was a good thing and a bad thing for them because the label figured when they did eventually get signed, they figured, well, we don't have to do anything for these guys because everyone already loves them. But then they didn't get the push from the label, and then they sort of fell like there was a limbo period. So for me, I have to bring up Ultramag because I do think that they definitely did some things production wise, like just album wise, lyrically, like just all of that. So yeah, that's what I got.
And you already know I agree with you 100%. I mean, I always say them niggas came back from the future. I mean, the way Cool Keith was rhyming in 1986, because some of these singles like Funky and Ego Tripping, that shit was like 86. I mean, the album dropped in 88, but we started getting a lot of those Next Plateau 12 inches, 86, 87. And the way Sed G was making the beats, who also made the beats for Criminal Minded, just an incredible group. The second album, I think it was Funk Your Head Up or The Horseman. The second album just wasn't there.
It was Your Head Up, yeah.
Just Funk Your Head Up. It just wasn't there. They did the Papa Large remix, but whatever energy they had in the beginning just didn't translate coming into the 90s. And that's a huge piece. A lot of times people, it's the same thing like going from college to the NBA. You got a lot of players that are great in college and then they come to the NBA and their game just doesn't translate well in the NBA. A lot of artists from the 80s, their game didn't translate well coming into the 90s, and Ultramag is one of those. So dope pick, P. Next one I got up is Tretch from Naughty by Nature. It's funny, we were talking about, I don't know how we got on top. We got on the topic of this, Porsche, because when the guy called Heavy D the East Coast MC Hammer. So it's just been a lot of stuff still on my timeline about that. And somebody was saying, yeah, some boy said that Heavy D was the East Coast version of MC Hammer. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's been a whole lot of old school legendary disrespect on my timeline this week. The buzzword is now gimmicks. It was Heavy D had a gimmick, Kid and Play had a gimmick, the Beastie Boys had a gimmick, and now niggas are like, well, no, a gimmick isn't a bad thing. I said, nigga, go in your boss's office and be like, yo, your gimmick ain't working on it. Like, gimmick is not a positive word. Like, gimmick has never been translated as anything positive. Gimmick, especially in the entertainment world, means you're not that talented, so you need something to keep people interested. So we ain't gonna flip the narrative and now make gimmick sound like it's a positive thing. Like, or my man called Hev a goofball, and I was like, a goofball? Like the fuck? Like he's like, no, I ain't mean goofball like that, but he just seemed like he was fun, and I'm like, but goofball is disrespectful. Like you don't call nobody a goofball out of a term of endearment or a term of respect, you know? So I get what you're trying to say with yo, Hev was just funny, but say that. Don't call him a goofball. Like, that sounds like some nut ass shit, like you trying to play him or something like that. Oh, and Meg, you probably didn't see the guy who said he could freestyle better than Hev's written. Did you miss that part?
What?
Yeah, the boy said he could freestyle better than Hev's written. So I was like, oh well, my nigga, you and MC, send me a link. I'm all ears. And then this nigga wrote out some lyrics for me. And I was like, nigga, if you don't get that deaf poetry shit out of my face, nigga, it's all about you freestyle better than Hev. But all of that to say, someone asked me, was Naughty by Nature hip hop? And I'm like, they're 100% hip. I don't think it wasn't a disrespectful question. It's like a young person asking an older person, like, Kill, how do you view Naughty by Nature? Because they had all these like big hits. And I'm like, yo, OPP banged in every hood. Like, OPP was at every party. Fucking Hip Hop Parade on a black college campus. When that shit was out, that shit was crazy. Treach could spit. So yes, you know, again, this goes back to my hip hop versus rap. Was Treach nice? Treach was nice. You know, and I'm giving Treach from like 91 to maybe 93 when you're talking about the whole first album, Yoke the Joker. I remember popping in that the first Naughty joint, just hitting play and hearing Yoke the Joker. Like, you know, everything's gonna be all right. A Ghetto Bastard. Yo, it's a radio song. That nigga is spitting the whole time. Like, this nigga is not on some Vanilla Ice shit. This nigga is spitting. It's just that the beat is catchy. The chorus is dope. But Treach is spitting from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Shit, I love Hip Hop Hooray. Like, that shit was dope. And Uptown Anthem. I mean, that may be one of the greatest songs in hip hop history. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So, but again, so I understood the question because most people look at Naughty. Here's the thing. A lot of people are just fans of this. They're not hip hop heads. So you could probably have people who like, oh, I love Naughty by Nature, but never heard an album. You know what I mean? Because the one thing I can say about Naughty is they always got 3 to 4 singles. You know what I mean? So you can have somebody who's like, yo, I love 10 songs by Naughty by Nature, but they've never heard Yoke the Joke. I forgot the name they joint they had on the New Jersey Drive soundtrack. Yeah. I want to say Connections or something. That shit was nasty. It was like, yeah, that was nasty. Like that's another thing in a salute to KG. KG could make you cruise pop and then turn around and make a beat for Next. You know what I mean? And turn around and make something grimy and then turn around and make a beat for Coffee Brown. Like I just feel like that whole crew was just super versatile. They could make a dope radio song, but they could also make Uptown Anthem. So what you think about Treach?
Man, listen, I did a flowers post for Treach about 2 years ago, man. Treach, amazing to see, crazy flow, influenced a lot of people. Eminem cited him several times. Eminem can recite Yoke the Joke and recite a lot of Treach rhymes because he's one of the guys, along with, like, of course, Master Ace and several other people that influenced Eminem. Eminem loved Treach. Treach is a great MC. Like, he can make the anthems. He can perform live. I was in Vegas one year, man, and not about it performed at it might have been MGM, man, but stage presence, mic presence, everything, man. Like, you know, and again, you talking about somebody can spit, but can also make club songs, radio songs. Everything's gonna be all right. You know, more you to join you about Tupac. You know what I'm saying? Get sentimental with it. Oh yeah, great MC, bro, no question.
Right, Veg, what you think about Treach?
And Ghostwriter, many hits.
Yes. Right. Cruise Pop, my favorite song from the youngsters is all Treach. You know what I mean? Niggas forget about that joint that KG did for D Nice. What was it called? Time to Flow off of D Nice second album that you could tell Treach wrote that whole joint. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? Like when what you described about like the questions about Heavy D and like just some of those statements, and even that question about Naughty by Nature or Treach, I think it's just something that people do over time in history. You know, here's the original story. It's like watching a fight happen, and over time people tell that story differently, and they only remember certain points, and sometimes they remember shit that did not happen. You You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Man,
Biggest shit up
You know
along
what I'm saying? Right. It changes, and I think with Heavy D, they just had this. They envisioned something that he wasn't in the present time. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Maybe they see him on Living Single and they think that's Heavy D. You know what I'm saying? But we know a different Heavy D. You know what I'm saying? We don't know just the actor or the guy who was with Monifa and stuff like that. And it's the same thing with Tretch, right? It's easy for somebody now to really just sum him up as Hip Hop Parade because of the sound, the feeling, but like you said, man, everything's gonna be all right. Yo, the Joker. Like I remember when I got that album off the strength of OPP, and I thought it was gonna be like OPP. Shit, I didn't even know what OPP was, and I'm like, yo, this album is like low key like a gangster rap album,
Right.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and
I mean, shit. Look at the cover. These even the cover don't say like, yo, we pop. It ain't like they first album when they was the New Breed or whatever they you know what I mean? But the second album looked like these niggas just got out of jail.
Jail suits and Timbo boots.
Right.
And look, come on, before there was DMX,
there was Tretch.
Had that big ass chain with him. I don't know why, but
and I'll never forget when was it that movie Rhyme or Reason? That nigga said, yo, if I wasn't rapping, I'd be in your crib robbing you right now.
It's Rhyme or Reason.
Yeah.
Rhyme or Reason, you know, so that's a great point, babe. Before there was DMX, you had Tretch.
Absolutely.
Yep. He was coming in, walking in interviews on like Video Soul with a bat, no shirt.
That nigga had the machete with him and everything. Yeah.
Right.
So them niggas from Newark. So yeah, I don't know no other way. Porsche, what you think about Tretch? You with that one?
Yeah, same thing as you guys. Like, I remember when I heard Naughty by Nature years ago for the first time, like obviously years, and I was like, wait, what? Like, they're doing things like OPP and then they're doing Hip Hop Parade, but then there's other, like, it was just so weird for me that Tretch could be those things. Like, that group was just those things, you know? So yeah, for me, I think Tretch is definitely a good mention, definitely a good pull for that one.
And for anybody out there watching who is suspect on Naughty, just go Google Uptown Anthem.
Yes.
That joint, when that came out with Juice, again, if you was outside, you already know when them keyboards start playing, you already know what's about to happen. You know what I mean? And then that beat come in, crazy. Veg, what you got up next for you, bro?
All right, up next for me, I'm gonna go with Little Brother. I couldn't even escape him at one point. Like, I remember when I fell back from being the host of Strictly Hip Hop and I was just producing. And I remember, shout out to Ak and Scooby. I remember them telling me, yo, you got to hear his Little Brother album. You know, they like Tribe. And I'm like, you little niggas get out of here. What you mean like Tribe? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I was feeling like I was retired. And I remember they kept telling me, and then they was telling me about the mixtapes. And I remember when the Mitchell Show came out and I was a believer. I was like, yo, this is not even a Tribe thing. This is something new. You know what I'm saying? This is like an evolution of that. And I remember it felt like everybody in hip hop was talking about them, right? Everything, even with the BET thing that happened, right? It was like everybody was siding, obviously, with Little Brother, because it's like, what do you mean they're too intelligent? What kind of shit is that? And I just remember like feeling like, damn, you know, every time I got a little bored with hip hop, something new would spark up that young energy in me to say, oh, you know, hip hop it's going to continue to evolve. It's not going to get stagnant. And from the production to the rhyming to just all three of them together, especially the mixtapes, like people give a lot of credit to like Lil Wayne and others for their mixtape game, and what's his name, J. Cole, anybody who put out dope mixtapes. But Little Brother was putting out some mean mixtapes back then. You know what I'm saying? Like some joints where they just as dope as the albums. And then, I mean, we all know what happened. You know, it's sometimes you blow up and other things aren't right and people have different things they want to do. And you think as a fan, you think it should remain together because it's so good to you. But you know, it's a different world when you know, in the record business, and you know, you trying to get out of whatever your current situation is through something you love. But for that moment in time, man, I couldn't escape hearing about them from anybody at that point in time. So yeah, man, Little Brother, even to this day, man, I get kind of mad, like, damn, like.
Now tell me this, didn't they have like a documentary coming out that was supposed to like come out this last year? Oh, it's still all right.
It's coming, but it's gonna be some drama with it.
Word?
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave it at that, bro.
All right. Yeah. It seems like every documentary that comes out like gets stuck somewhere. Like the D'Angelo documentary.
Knife is not a part of it.
Okay, he's not a part of the documentary at all?
No.
Damn. Well, okay. I think we did a show about this. And we just talked about this on our Twitter Spaces. Can there be a Little Brother reunion if Knife doesn't produce it? Like, is Knife like the core? Is it a real Little Brother album if Knife isn't producing? And so I know, you know, you're a fan. You're from North Carolina, Bay. You're a fan. If you see that and Knife isn't producing it, are you hyped for it? I mean, you may be hyped for Fonte and Pooh, but if Knife doesn't produce it, do you look at it as a little? We were talking about the Cypress Hill album and Black Milk producing it. And I was like that turned me off. As soon as I heard Black Milk, I was like, if Muggs ain't doing it, there ain't no Cypress Hill album to me. So whatever. But what do y'all think about with Knife not being in the documentary? Do you think like that's a real Little Brother documentary, or can that be a real Little Brother album if Knife isn't part of it?
As far as the documentary, to be honest with you, it's a Fonte and Pooh documentary if Knife is not part of it. It's not a Little Brother documentary to me. And whoever here it is and see, they might feel a certain way, don't matter. And I'm not saying this because Knife is a friend of mine. Fonte and Pooh is fine with me. I have no issue with them. But it's not a Little Brother documentary if Knife is not part of the documentary. Let's be serious. You know what I'm saying? As far as the album part, Fonte and Pooh are Little Brother regardless of Knife one. I will say that in terms of the music. Because, I mean, they had minstrel show and the listening or whatever. They had the Chitlin Circuit joint. They had other Justice League mixtapes prior to that. So they have a lot of work together as a trio. But the group did still go on with Get Back and Left Back and May the Lord Watch. And all. Those are Little Brother albums. Does it feel authentic? Not really, because I think they have a certain energy with Knife. Now, Crisis does a good job, but see, Crisis did May the Lord Watch, but he basically made beats like Knife would do. And I know this. We'll talk when we get out.
All right, we'll talk. So yeah, I know you.
Documentary to me is I feel like it's going to be incomplete if Pat is not having a third of it. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, to me, like it's like the Tribe documentary. If Fife wasn't a part of it, like you don't get that documentary. You don't get the meat and potatoes of what you get from Beats, Rhymes, and Life if Fife wasn't a part of that documentary.
You know what you get? You get part of the story.
Right, you get part of the story. All right. Yeah. And what about you, Vay? Is it an album if Knife doesn't do it?
Nope. Because when I became a fan, that's who was there. It was all three of them. It's like when you become a fan of somebody or a group, it's everything. You know what I'm saying? It's everything that you're becoming a fan of in that moment. And to not have him, like, I get it, because even after he left, I was kind of like, I don't know. Then I heard the Get Back, and I was like, well, this shit hot. Like, you know what I'm saying? But it's the same thing when Brand Nubian, Pooh was a part of that. Oh, Pooh was gone? I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? But Brand Nubian, to me, was always all for one and slow down. So even though I like Punk's Jump Up to Give You, even though I like that album, it's just not the same, man. It's not the magic, you know what I'm saying, that sparked the whole situation for all of them. So.
Right. All right, Tone, who you got up next, bro?
I got Method Man, yo, because I'm gonna tell you something. In '94, well, first of all, after 93 when Into the Wu-Tang Thursday Chambers came out, Meth having his own solo song on there. He had the whole swag, the look, the dudes in the hood like him, the chicks like him. He had the whole package to me. He had his own song on 36 Chambers. Oh, they already promoted him as the star of Wu-Tang. You know what I'm saying? So then when Tikal come out, you got the joint with Mary J. Blige, you got the remix. We in school at the time in college, they playing that joint in the parties all the time. But they playing on the radio. Like Method Man is up next. We thought the Cal was gonna be like Illmatic or Ready to Die. You know, it left something to be desired. Even though I like the Cal more than Kill does. You know what I'm saying? But but at the end of the day, it didn't become this big, huge moment in hip hop like it should have been, because Meth had everything for a short period of time. I think Method Man was that dude. He's the only person on Ready to Die with Biggie. He goes head to head on the what. He's like I said, he's on R&B joints. He's on the radio. He in the hood still. We like Meth that nigga. You know what I'm saying? And it just he started fizzling out by 95. You got Only Built for Cuban Link, Liquid Sword. ODB becomes a big star. You know, Return 36, and Method Man it kind of goes into obscurity for a minute until him and Redman pop off and all of that stuff. So, man, he left a lot to be desired on the table, man. Like Meth could have really been large. I don't know if he's one of the ones like Deck, who music might have got lost in RZA accident or whatever, but he could have been a lot more to me. Even though he's a legend, Meth could have been he could have been Nas Biggie in 94 or 95 to me.
Right. Porsche is the floods of RZA's many floods are like the bane of her existence.
Aquaman. He's just wherever he goes, a flood ensues. So I love RZA. I just don't know how. I mean, I've heard that there was 3 floods. I don't know how you let it happen a second time, let alone a third time. I don't know.
Well, here's the wild part. He moved from the basement to the apartment, but then the apartment above his had a flood. Again, so you can't win for losing. Like, you can't be mad at him. Like, yo, I took the shit out the basement. Like, okay, we on the second floor apartment. Ain't no way it's gonna happen. Oh shit, it's coming from the roof. Like, I can't get mad at him. He self-corrected. He ain't throw it back in the basement. It just is what it is. It's funny, so listening to you talk, I'm thinking Meth actually kind of reminds me of Puba. Because like the way most people I think Tikal's a good 3.5 mic album. Like, I don't think it's a whack album at all. It just wasn't the 5 mic album we wanted. And you sounded just like me with Puba, like, yeah, Real to wasn't the 5 mic album we wanted, but I'm like, it's good 3.5, maybe on a good day 4. But it was, and people don't understand that who weren't outside at that time. Yo, Month of the Man was huge. Like, at Morgan, it was huge. This whole Month of a Man, Redman's There's a Dark Side, Meth's Tikal. Like, I tell people it wasn't supposed to be who's the best rapper, Biggie, Jay-Z, or Nas. It was supposed to be who's the best rapper, Biggie, Meth, or Nas. Like, that's where Meth was at that level of being that person. The anticipation of Tikal may have been up there with Doggy Style. You know, for what we was expecting from it. And the thing is, Snoop came and he completed the mission. He did what he was supposed to do. You know, Meth didn't do what he was supposed to do. And it's a great point you brought up too. He really didn't pop again until he linked up with Red and did the Blackout joint like that.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and I never really thought about that, but yeah, like, you go to, it's almost like you want to see Meth in Red. Like, you really don't want to see Meth by himself. It's like, yo, do the Rockwilder, or do this, like, you know. So, but nah, I agree, man. And I think it was the flood. I think it was a lot with Meth, man. Like, but like you said, he was like Puba. He was with Mary. Like, when you start looking at the trajectory, they almost it's like, yo, he had the solo cuts. He could do songs with Mary like Pooh could. He could do some gutter shit over here. But yeah, just it didn't pan out, man. It didn't pan out. That's definitely a dope pick. P, who you got up next?
Okay, my next one is Foxy Brown. And I got Foxy because when Il Nana dropped, that album was, I remember when Lil' Kim had Hardcore and then Foxy Brown had Il Nana, and people were like pitting them against each other because they were just so dope. Like, Foxy just came in like that, and you know, she delivered, and then not only that, she got on a joint with Method Man. She had a joint with Method Man. She had a joint with Jay-Z. She was then recruited to be in the Firm with Nas. Like, she just was very sought after as well, kind of like Da Brat. So for me, Foxy was very dope and very kind of there in the midst of popularity for a moment in time, definitely. And I think that it's undeniable at that point. And then I think after Il Nana and then she dropped China Doll, that's kind of when it started going a little bit downhill. It wasn't it just I didn't love China Doll at all. I liked Broken Silence ish, but that Il Nana album,
Yeah.
I mean, for that's a classic joint. I love that album. That is
What do y'all think went wrong with Foxy? Like, when did she dip off? Was it after the firm? Was it, you know, why didn't she stay relevant? Right?
Well, actually, and what's worse, she has a situation similar to Rod Digger. I think after the Broken Silence joint came out, she had a couple of joints, a couple of radio hits too. I think she had a joint with Sprague Benz that was on the radio, and the Brooklyn Anthem joint. I think it was some label stuff because she had an Il Nana too, and that shit is high.
Yep.
Like it's like a comeback type shit, but it was released way later, way later. I mean, you could find it now. I think you can even find it on streaming services. But the production was dope. The bars were dope. Like, I think.
Do you know when this was supposed to come out? Like, do you know when? Like, is this like a? Because what Il Nana was when, Porsche? What year did her debut come out?
96.
96.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Broken Silence might have been late 90s, I think.
Okay.
If not early
Okay,
2000s. Yeah, and then Il Nana too.
We're supposed to drop.
There was joints on the mixtapes, and she had momentum because the Broken Silence joint kind of brought her back from.
Yeah, the
Broken
BK
Silence
Anthem
was-
shit was hard.
Right.
Broken Silence was 2001.
Okay.
2001, yeah. So this joint was probably 03. But real quick, I just want to say, like, I agree with Porsche because it's weird to see, like, Kim, and she went to jail, but Kim is where she is now with some relevancy, probably more so because of all the chicks that kind of do things that she did. But Foxy was right there with her around the time when Kim was hot. But nobody really talks about Foxy, you know?
Right. And I mean, I'm sure the whole her going deaf and losing her hearing, you know, didn't help things either.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
That she had some mental health issue struggles. She had some addiction problems. There was a lot going on. There was like some deaths in her family and a lot of that, but that didn't come out until later. So I don't know if that was going on like back in the mid 90s to late 90s, or if that stuff happened after. I don't know the timeline. It just was all reported later.
Right. All right. Next person I got up, Mos Def. I think from like 98 to 2000. I mean, the Black Star debut was crazy. Big. I remember we were at Strictly Hip Hop, and after Big died, everybody was like, "Well, who's next?" And I was like, "Yo, this nigga Mos really got next." And of course, I didn't mean as far as who was going to sell records and all that stuff. I just meant like who did I think was like the nicest that could come up behind Big. And I was like, Mos, like this nigga does it all. Like, you know, from the Black Star debut to his debut, nigga can sing. Like this nigga just does it all. You talk about the swag, he got the voice, he got the flow, all those Chappelle skits that he be doing, Dave in the car, and the What's Beef with Talib on stage with Chappelle. Like, he was just like unfucking stoppable. Like, he was on a rampage. And then kind of like after Black on Both Sides, although the second album came out, he went to do the Black Jack Johnson thing, which was like his rock and roll band. And it just seemed like I don't know what happened. It just, and even now we finally get this Black Star album, when I'm listening to it, it sounded like Mos ain't even into it. Like, it sounded like he just phoned them verses in. Like, it was like, sure, all right, Quad, let's do it. You know, but it didn't feel like there was no oomph behind it, like the stuff that he was doing, man. But I just felt like Mos was that dude for a minute there. If I saw a feature Mos Def, I was all in. Like, you know what I mean? So I got Mos, and that's from like 98 to 2000. Forgot an R&B joint. Bobby Brown, man. You know what I mean? For a while, this dude was the fucking king of stage, man. You know, like, I think we were going back and forth on the timeline. Like, one nigga was like, yo, Bob, at one point in time, Bob was bigger than Michael Jackson. I was like, you know what? I could kind of, well, vague. I'm not saying he, for a moment in time. Like, maybe when Mike was having a down year and Bobby was having a good year.
Mike was resting.
Yeah, while Mike was rested. Right. That's why I said, that's why I looked at it first. I was like, I don't know, but maybe for a moment, again, this name of the show, for a moment in time. I'm not saying he was bigger than Michael across the board and whose name comes, but just for a moment in time. Like you said, Mike wasn't recording, Bobby was the shit for a minute before. But I don't think people really realize how big Bobby Brown was, because again, you look at him now and it's like, oh, the fat guy from New Edition. I've seen people talk about Bob like that. You mean the fat nigga in New Edition? And I'm like, whoa. First of all, do you even understand that this man has lost both his children and his ex-wife to drugs? Like, you don't even nigga, I lose one person to drugs. You don't know, skinny kill gone, fat boy kill back again. So,
and let's just say this for those people who say shit like that, who don't know what they're talking about. This man is clean. He was on drugs when he was thinner.
Yes. Bobby Brown also, Don't Be Cruel, if I'm not mistaken, sold like 8-9 million records. You know what I mean? So there was a moment in time where he was a face of R&B. It might have been for a year and a half, 2 years, but he was the one for a period of time.
And again, I think it's like you said, Veg, when people can tell the story different. I think it's just a lot of younger people not knowing. You know, I really want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is ignorance. You don't know. You're like, hey, why is this dude? He ain't keeping up with. Because you'll see him on social media on IG, and he's not keeping up with the dance steps. So if you don't know Bob, you would look at it like, yo, goddamn, this nigga ain't go to rehearsal. Like, what's up with your man? Like, but again, there was a time and point when Bob was the fucking man. Like, it was a clip going around with him on 227. Like, he was killing the dance steps on TV shows. I mean, off on our own, off of Ghostbusters. Like, Bob could just do no wrong for a point in time. What happened? I mean, drugs got in the way. You know, him and Wick got married and everything like that. But and I think R&B just changed. But there was a time when Bob was the man. And another quick R&B one. I want to know what y'all think about this. Alicia Keys. I felt like from about 2002 to 2004, Alicia Keys was like the biggest female singer out there. Now, I can't remember if Beyonce was solo then, but for a moment in time, Alicia Keys, I don't know what happened. Just like one day I woke up and everybody was like, fuck Alicia Keys. I'm like, damn, what happened? I didn't get the memo. Like that's what happened. But I felt like they went two different lanes. Like Alicia Keys wasn't, I felt like Beyonce was more in the Aaliyah lane. Like I dance, I sing, I act. Right. Like I felt like Alicia Keys is not getting up off that piano. Like Alicia Keys is not trying to do nobody's dance move. Like, but I just feel like with Songs in A Minor and Diary, like Alicia Keys was shit. Like that Fallen. Like who didn't like Fallen? Who didn't like A Woman's Worth? Who didn't like You Don't Know My Name? Like we gonna now act like that shit wasn't the shit. Like you know. Yeah, unbelievable. Like, yo, she has bangers. Like, and I played my best of Alicia Keys for my man. He was like, damn, I didn't even realize Shorty had so many hits. Like, she has big songs. And I think maybe when she split with Crucial and then she got with Swiss, or the music did change. Trust me, the music was not as consistent anymore. But for a moment in time, Alicia Keys was a shit. I know we now like to look back now and, you know, we talk about her fucking pimples and what was she on Clearasil commercials or whatever. But there was a moment in time when Alicia Keys was the shit. What are you going to say, Back?
I'm probably the only fan left of Alicia Keys.
Me too, bro. I would still check for her. I will still listen for Alicia Keys
album. Like it's the deep, like she's Stevie Wonder. I'll be listening to that new shit. Like you know what I'm saying? But I think for her, a lot of it is, you know, the change in R&B in general, and Beyonce had a lot to do with that. And a couple of people kind of made the same style of records, like J-Lo was hot at that time, and A. Marie. So it was just kind of like a movement of a certain sound. But I think people were still checking for Alicia Keys, to be honest, and it's kind of messed up. I think it's just because she slept with a married man and then married him and had a family, and I think that might have turned her core fan base from her, right? Because
it's a good point. After the whole Swiss, like I said, I was thinking Swiss production leaving Crucial Keys, who I think she was fucking with before Swiss. But you're right.
Right.
Yeah. So, but like you said, if the bulk of your fan are women, and they're women of a certain age who are married, and you're fucking a married man, and now you're married to the married man who got a divorce. Great point, babe. Great point. And you can alienate your fan base.
Yeah, you kind of ignore what's happening also, because she kind of did that. Everything became like real spiritual, and it's like, no, you fucked her husband. Like,
you can't make it right.
You can't hypnotize us with that spirit.
You can't get saved that. You can't get saved that. Right. No, wrong time. Wrong time, wrong place.
No, it's not really pure. Like,
right.
I don't think so. But you know what though? I knew it was over because, like, I didn't like that Girl on Fire album. I thought it was whack. I think she tried to do something different. It wasn't that great. But then she came back with an album that was kind of like dedicated to hip hop, and it was dope. And nobody cared.
Which one was that?
Joint with the gray cover. I gotta look it up. I have it, but
Right.
it was really dope. It was the type of joint that if you think about all those albums you mentioned and all the hits she had, like if she followed that up as something different, cats would have loved it. But
she's a hip hop head too.
Yeah, she a hip hop.
Because that's the kick. Like I said, Fallen was the shit. And then that joint Unbreakable that was off the live album, that was everywhere. You know, everybody loved that joint. Everybody loved You Don't Know My Name. Diary, not the actual single and all that shit. Like, Keys was big. She was big. But that's a great point, Veg, on why she made Disappear. Who you got up next, Veg?
Damn, hold up. I was about to find the album because it was driving me crazy.
Hey, real quick, Kill. I do want to go back when you said about Mos Def, man. And, you know, I recently posted Black on Both Sides, and I said, look, if a 12-year-old kid came up to me and said, hey, I want to learn something about hip hop, that would be one of my albums. I would say, hey, man, take this Black on Both Sides by this guy Mos Def right here, and you listen to that, the melodies, the flow, just the rhythm of the album, the different types of songs on there. He can give you the Umi Says, will give you mathematics. You know what I'm saying? Like Mos Def at his peak in 98, 99, he was one of the greatest MCs I've ever heard. And I've been saying it on Twitter for a decade. You know what I'm saying? When he's focused on just rhyming, when I listen to Thieves in the Night and shit like that, Mos Def can rap with anybody from any era of hip hop. So I wanted to say that too, man. He's anybody.
He had a joint on this album, the Ski Beats 24-hour karate.
Cream of the Planet.
Cream of the Planet, and he had another joint. It's not on here, but you can find it on YouTube called Taxi. That shit was crazy too. And for people just watching, this is a very dope album. Ski Beats is like the Soul Survivor album. Bangers on here. I mean, Jim Jones, Currency, Prowler 2 with Jean Grey, Jay Electronica, and Joel Ortiz. I think there was something with this, like something happened because I got the bootleg copy of this and Mos is on it. But on this version, Mos isn't on anything. Like Cream of the Planet, none of that stuff. It's just the instrumentals are on here. So
you know
something must have happened between Dame Dash or whatever. This is on Dame Dash's like DD 1172 label or something like that. Because I haven't listened to this in years because I always listen to the version on my phone. But now I'm looking at this and I'm like, yo, Mos Def is not on this album at all. And he's on that posse cut Prowler 2 with Jean Grey, Jay Elect, and Joel Ortiz. But none of those joints are actually on the physical copy of it.
Yes,
hey man, shout out to Ski Beats too, because you know I went to UNCG and A&T, and Ski Beats from Greensboro, man. So one of my homies grew up with him, man. So he was around the way at the time, right before Original Flavor popped off, and then he moved to New York.
Man, Ski to me is one of the most dopest producers of the '90s that nobody talks about, man.
Monster producer, bro. Monster producer.
Yeah. Who was that? Babe, did you go?
No.
All right, who you got next? That's that. Oh yeah, I do remember that. So that's a hip hop.
Oh yeah.
It's like a dedication to hip hop, but I like the way she blended things, and it didn't get corny, but nobody gave a shit but me. So,
yeah, man.
Next, I have the one that everybody's probably been waiting for, Cannabis. I mean, similar to what Tone was like, the way Tone was building Method Man is how I felt about Cannabis. Like every time I heard a new verse, I was like, this dude is unbelievable. Like there's not a moment that I hear him and he don't say something crazy, right? Like I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. Then when I heard him on a Firm album, I'm thinking, oh, he on a joint with Nas and AZ and he killed that shit. Yeah. And I just couldn't believe how quickly that turned. Right, like how, and I figured like, okay, yeah, your first album wasn't what we thought it would be, and even though the second album was better, that moment in time where he was just making dudes rewrite their verses, it just passed so quickly, and I couldn't believe it because I was like, damn, how could somebody that talented on a mic just all of a sudden just turn into like, almost like a different MC? You know what I'm saying? Especially when you look at a lot of his stuff now, but it's probably because of life. You know, he's seen some things, and that probably bothered him also, right? Because as much as we're fans and we saw the momentum, I'm pretty sure he did as well. and for it to go the way it did, was terrible. But I don't think some of these people who argue, well, I won't say anybody because I don't know, but most of these people who argue for these rappers, they start at a point that's not what we're talking about. We talking about Blue Tapes. We talking about Beast of the East. You know what I'm saying? We talking about all of those moments when we was like, I didn't even know what he looked like for a long ass time because you never saw him. You know what I'm saying? You never saw him in a video. But yeah, Cannabis was that dude. And I remember, Kill, when you set up the interview. I remember when you said it too. You're like, yeah, I got an interview with you with Cannabis. I'm like, what? Like, nobody want to hear from this nigga. Like, but it was good because even me professionally, like, because that was like one of the biggest interviews for me at that time in my career. And I knew he was angry, right? Because of how everybody looked at it. I knew he was angry at Clef and LL. So I was like, I'm not going to ask him none of that shit. We just going to focus on your new album. And I think he appreciated that. And then he wound up talking about LL and Wyclef. But for us, it was like, bet, go ahead.
Right.
But it was sad to see because of all the momentum he had before that first album.
So do you think the L battle is what killed them? Like that? Because here's the thing. I was never a big Cannabis fan like that. So that's why I'm asking you guys. I've heard different things throughout time that, well, I know nobody fucked with the album. And now the narrative on Twitter is, no, it wasn't that bad. Yo, it was actually a pretty good album. I don't remember none of that shit happening. No, it was horrible. So do you think it was the second round knockout was such a letdown? Like, did y'all feel let down by that disc? Like, I was like, this is it? I mean, huh?
I did not.
All right, you like, so
I liked it.
So where did he go wrong?
The album.
Combinations. That album.
I mean, you know what? In my opinion, second round knockout was dope to me. But even past that, let's just say it was whack and L had a better disc. Man, at the end of the day, the music is what counts. If he would have dropped a dope ass album, at some point it's like, yeah, okay, cool. He lost the battle. The album 5 mics or 4.5 mics. He got hits on it. Production is dope. People, at some point, it don't matter about the battle no more. You got a good product. His album just wasn't that dope. You know what I'm saying? I think like 2000 BC and some of his later albums end up being pretty good albums, but the spark was gone.
Yeah.
So do y'all think that he was one of those people who just can't, maybe like a Meth? I'm like, Meth is great for a 16. Maybe Meth just doesn't have what it takes to sit down to write a 48 for people watching. That's 16 times 3 or 3 bars, coming up with a good hook. Can he not do that 12 times? I don't think Meth can. I just don't think Meth has the capability to keep you that long. Like, he can give you, if you want a dope 16, Meth is top 5 ever, in my opinion, of a 16. If you get a Meth 16, he's 9 times out of 10 gonna blaze it. Maybe he doesn't have the talent to make a whole album. Is that Cannabis? He was great on the mixtapes. He was great on the features. But when it came down to actually making a whole album, he just couldn't do it.
He's not interesting enough. And what I mean by that is this. When you think about Tupac, DMX, some of these guys, even though they're more lyrical than some people give them credit for, they're engaging. You feel them, the energy. They know how to craft songs, bring you into their world. Cannabis is kind of like a robot to a degree. You know what I'm saying? So after a couple of freestyles and shit over dope beats, that's cool. But I want to hear that for 15 tracks, a bunch of Saturn and Uranus shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't really keep people attention like that for so long because relatability in music is everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel Marvin Gaye. Oh, I feel Stevie Wonder. I feel Tupac. I feel Pain or Pour Out a Little Liquor or Dear Mom. I don't feel Poet Laureate after the second time. It's fucking 9 minutes long of just rambling a bunch of 1,000 bars. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? To me.
Yeah. What are you gonna say, Vay?
No, I was gonna say the question you asked about, was it the battle? Was it the album? I think it was a combination of the different things. But I will say this: when I heard Buckingham Palace on a mixtape, I ain't think about none of that other shit. I just kept thinking like, this album might be crazy because this song is crazy. Yeah. But it was like one of 3 that were like that. And to Tone's point, It's just one of those things. Like I don't know if he's a freestyler, but usually like battle rappers style dudes, they're not songwriters. They're just not. Like look at Joel Ortiz. He's nice, but he be trying, and I just be looking like house shoes. I don't want to hear that shit, nigga. With them Bodega Chronicles.
Right.
With that, you know.
Yeah, I was just wondering because I'm just like you said, he had the buzz. I'm thinking about, I don't know if you've ever seen these girls. They're from Brooklyn, called the Girl Code. You know what I mean? Check them out when you get a chance. I dig them. I think me and Nate was just on YouTube, and what I like about them is like they redid Big L's Ebonics. I felt like they killed it. You know, they're rhyming over Camp Lo, like they're young Johns, but they know, it seems like they know their history. Like when they interviewed them, it was like, yo, who do y'all look up to? And they're like, yo, Ray and Ghost. And it's like, yo, y'all like 18 years old. Like how are Ray and Ghost y'all like the people you look up to? But then so in their freestyles are dope when they're on the radio, but now I'm listening to their EP and I'm like, it just don't got the same energy like that y'all got when y'all, you know, on Sway or when y'all on Flex. Like I'm not getting that energy that I see you with now in your music. You know, and I'm like, I guess that's the secret to your salmon sauce. Like, how do you keep that energy that you have from a live show? It's kind of like on Common's album, on B. The original version had the live version of Food. And niggas on OK Play was like, yo, that shit trash. We don't want to hear that shit. We want the Chappelle Show version.
I love that version.
The Chappelle Show?
The live joint, yeah.
Yeah, the live one. But the studio one didn't have none of that energy from the live show. And that's how we ended up getting the live version of the Food on B, because the version they did in the studio was just like, it was just like this, where none of that energy was there. So I don't know. I was just thinking maybe that's like with Cannabis, like all that live freestyle, I'm on the radio, here's 16, here's 32, just didn't translate good to wax, you know, because I'm like, yo, these shorties are Girl Code, they crazy. If I had a deal, I signed them right the fuck now. And I'm listening to their album like, damn, like this ain't it. Like,
and remember, he did release during the Shiny Suit era, so nobody wanted, like, there was a lot of other shit that people were trying to, even rappers who didn't do it were trying to emulate that.
Yeah,
it wasn't really it, you know. So.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, I remember OC. I had people who loved OC who did not like Far From Yours. Like, yo, why this nigga got the girl singing now? Why Yvette Michelle? I loved it. I thought I had no beef with Far From Yours, but I know niggas like, yo, this nigga now he got singers on his shit now. Like, and I'm like, bro, it's 97. You better do something. You better get something.
Trying to eat.
Somebody better sing right. Like somebody trying to keep a deal, not trying to get dropped. But yeah, crazy. Cannabis. Who you got up next, though?
You know what? I hate to say this again too. It hurts me. I'm gonna go with Big Daddy Kane, man. So, you know, 1988, Long Live the Kane. 89, like Big Daddy thing. Kane had like a 2-3 year run where, you know, he also was looked at as maybe he's the best rapper right now, or right there at the top with.
But you know this too, with Kane, the good thing about Kane is his name at least still gets brought up.
It does. But I'm just,
you know, so that's the good. Yeah, but that's the good thing. Like I can't say for Kane, because my man Nick used to ask me like, "Yo, OG, why y'all fuck with Kane so much? He only had 2 albums out. Like where they do that at?" And I had to kind of break down the 12-inch, like Raw, set it off, like it built up to that. But yeah, Kane.
No, I'm talking about the moment in time when certain people actually thought Big Daddy Kane was the best rapper. There was a moment during Long Live the Kane when some people started saying Kane is the best rapper over Rakim, KRS, Slick Rick, everybody.
That's the battle we always wanted. We wanted the Kane and Rakim battle. It was like Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair. Every kid wanted to see Hulk Hogan wrestle Ric Flair. Like, we don't care if you in the WWF and you in the NWA, nigga. Y'all both got the world belt. Y'all niggas need to wrestle. Like, we all wanted that. I think it was Kane who said the better battle would have been him and KRS or something like that. But and that's what we wanted. We wanted Kane and Rakim.
That was true because, I mean, if they would have done it at the Apollo like they said that time, Kane would have smashed Rakim on stage because he's a stage performer. Rakim is a writer, so Rakim would have got him with a record, but Kane would have got him. It would have translated on stage. Kane would have got him. You know what I'm saying? But Rakim gonna beat you with the rhymes on paper. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was a moment when when Big Daddy Kane was absolutely looked at as the best, and it's cool that to see that versus with him and KRS of the other year, because man, Kane looked good, he sounded good, voice was clear, he did those freestyles, man. He made me proud, bro. I mean, I see him around the way because he lives here in Raleigh. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I go down to hip hop joints down in Raleigh, I run into Kane sometime, man. He just like you expect, man, cool and humble. You know what I'm saying? Smooth brother. So yeah, man, respect the Big Daddy Kane, man. He was definitely one of the GOATs for a quick moment.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Pete, who you got up next? What you say, babe?
I got a true Vegas story about
a Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah. It's not. Well, it was bad at the time. I think social media, to your point, has put Kane's name back in the conversation because of people like us who defend when he was the guy. Right. But I remember being in this club in DC back in like the late 90s or whatever. I think it was, I forget what club, but I went to the bar and I did not know that I was standing next to Big Daddy Kane until the DJ said, "Shout out to Kane at the bar." And I was like, "What?" And I looked and he was right there, right? And he had a rainbow suit on. I'm not joking either.
He had a rainbow
suit on, and he had two chicks with him. When I saw the two chicks, I was like, "It's Kane." But what was sad was during the let out. First of all, when he did it, ain't nobody go over there and say nothing. We in the club.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He just put the two, but he didn't care. He put the sign up. But then when we came out, it was just one drunk dude who recognized him. And I felt like me and my homies just sat in the car back to be more like, damn, Kane can stand out of a club that just let out and only one person recognizes him. And he's a legend. You know what I'm saying? But he getting his flowers now, so it's all good.
But you know what? Down here, over the years, he been out here like 20 years. Anytime he had a spot, man, people show him mad love down here. So I'm glad that whatever happened in the situation, what you saw, is not something hopefully was normal for Kane. But he gets mad love down here in North Carolina. He's been here for a long time, and every time I've seen him, man, people showing him he's very, he's real cool, man. Everybody show him a lot of love, man. So I'm glad he's getting his love regardless.
Yeah, we need to because again, God forbid he pass away, then everybody wants to talk about Kane and everything like that. So, like you said, we gotta give him his flowers now. Pete, who you got up next?
I've got an R&B joint. I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but I'm gonna say As Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love.
Sorry. You and my brother, the only ones that bring them up.
No. Here's the thing. I wasn't the biggest fan of As Yet, but they had like some stronghold in R&B for like a period of time where every single person was talking about that effing song last night, and every time I was like, listen, I am the poster child for like loving love songs, and that song is very raunchy to me. Like, are you listening to the lyrics? It's not the best song ever. Like, let's not. And then they did a cover of it's hard to say I'm sorry by Chicago.
Chicago. I was gonna say that's As Yet. Okay.
Actually love Chicago. That's one song that I'm very picky with who does covers, and I don't think As Yet kind of nailed it. And not only that, like Babyface wrote for them. Babyface produced for them. John B produced for them a song. Brian McKnight, like they had a lot of heavy hitters behind them at the time, and it translated well because they were really big, but they just totally fell off. I don't even know who knows about them anymore. Like honestly.
Well, you and Vegas brother. I mean, y'all still know about him. I remember that single. I remember the Hard to Say I'm Sorry because, like you, I love Chicago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know nothing about As Yet. I don't. But you're saying at a point in time they were dope. Like everybody loved them.
Like everybody. I mean.
Okay.
Like. I was like, hey, what about Boyz II Men? And people were like, but that As Yet joint. And I'm like, but there's Boyz II Men. Like, what are you talking about? And there's Jodeci. Like, what are you talking about? And it was like, nah, but that As Yet. So it was like that. So,
All
yeah.
All right. Next up, I got. Yeah. What you got, Tom? No. What you got?
Troop, man. Remember Troop?
Oh, Troop was the shit. Troop was the shit. All I do is think of you. What was that other song? I will always love you. Oh yeah, spread my wings. Yeah. Troop was the shit. Them two slow jams held me down in the 80s. And I will always love you. And all I do is think of you. Oh, there you go, right there. That was good money with me. That's all you needed, man. That first album was crazy.
It was crazy.
Next up, I got Beanie Siegel. I'm going 98 to 2005. I mean, the first time I heard him was on Crew Love off the Belly soundtrack in 98. I won't hold you the truth. I wasn't really in love with the first album. I thought it was alright. You know what I mean? To me, it was really disappointing because I was like really hyped for it. Then The Reason, I was like, yo, this is dope. You know, this is dope. And then by The Becoming, that was his like classic. Like I felt like that was like the upward movement. It was like, oh, that's dope. And oh yeah, now this is that shit right there. His mixtape with Green Lantern, Public Enemy #1, that was in 2004. That was crazy. You know what I mean? So people watching, if you ain't never heard that mixtape, go look at that. And anytime he was on a song with Jay, I felt like he went toe to toe with him. And a lot of times he was better than Jay, in my opinion. A great example, It's On, off The Becoming. Like I felt like he ate Jay. And Jay killed it too. So it's not like Jay didn't come with it, but that's how nice Beans was, that he was going toe to toe for what many people call the GOAT MC ever. Beans was right there with him. And even that Jada battle, like to me, that was like one of those battles where it just to me, there's no clear cut winner in my opinion. You know, if you say Jada won, I can't get mad. Somebody say Beans won.
I thought Siegel won.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Of course I thought Siegel won, but of course it may be my Philly bias. I say it's not, but it probably is.
You remember when Rockefeller went up to the radio station, was doing all them freestyles? Yep. And and Siegel was also throwing shots at Mobb Deep. Because you remember that line, he said something like, squad Mobb Deep, and we're creeping on a quiet storm. Give up your goods or sleep on a quiet storm. You know what I'm saying? And he dissed Mobb Deep and all of them. Oh, and that was over top of a Mobb Deep beat. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So Siegel was a monster at his peak.
Yeah, there was a time. I mean, State Prop was the shit. Like, and Beans was that dude. I just think after The Becoming, that's after the Rockefeller split. I think the next joint was The Solution, and that wasn't it. Then, you know, again, like Slick Rick, jail, in and out of jail. You know, then him getting shot. I think he lost a kidney, or he lost a lung, and now his voice sounds the way it does. So, but there was a 98 to 05 run. I felt like Beans was that nigga. Like, you know what I mean? But again, name will never get brought up in conversations as the GOAT. What you think, babe? Beans or not?
Let me see if I could quote somebody. The mustache like whiskers like a rat compared to Beans, you whack. And Ether, Nas is big enough Beanie over Jay-Z. I think there was something different and unique about Beanie. And I agree with you. Like, I didn't like The Truth. Because when I heard The Truth, like,
the song was crazy.
I was like, yo, this album gonna be nuts. Yeah. And it was a letdown. And then, The Reason was better. And
that was dope. And What's Your Life Like? Those two songs on
What's Your Life Like? Yo.
Yeah.
Just all crazy. And I mean, it's sad, you know, it had to happen the way it did. But a lot of it also had to do with him just not being able to focus on business and music and putting that.
I mean, I think he got locked up 3 times. Like, one time for like tax evasion, one time, like, he's got locked up like at least 3 times in his career, and each one of those times just kept pausing them, and it was like, it's hard to keep hitting that reset button every time, you know. And then, like I said, I think when he his voice, I'll never forget that Pusha album, and I was like so hyped, like, oh shit, Beans is on this. I remember hearing the song, being like, well, where was Beans? And like, oh shit, that was Beans with the voice sounding like that. So, you know what I mean? I think that didn't help either, you know, because I mean, he can still do it, but it ain't the same, you know. So I know Beans was one of the people saying he was going to use AI to make a new album.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that because
I'm not mad at that either. DOC decided to do that. Like, you should definitely be able to use your own voice. Yeah,
they're right.
Your voice. So go do it. Like, knock yourself out with it. Yo, totally off topic. Did y'all see this? That Young Guru had posted on IG that there's and this may be the album. I think I was telling y'all about it on the show that there was this Drake AI album that I found on YouTube. Porsche, just close your ears. That's dope as shit, but it's not Drake. And I mean, he has all kinds of features on it, like The Weeknd and other people that's not them. But that this album is now nominated for a Grammy.
No, they submitted.
Oh, they submitted. Okay, they submitted.
But that's crazy in itself, right?
Like, yo, it's none of these people. Like, who shows up? Like, if they accept it and they win, who the fuck shows up? Who takes the Grammy?
I didn't think in 2023 I would have to deal with like a human Drake and then an AI Drake. Like this is is like, oh, let's just do, and then I don't know. I'm just pissed. Like it is wild.
Look, Porsche having me crying, yo. I'm telling you.
Oh, you got to, man. Porsche's hilarious, man. But but again, I'm just like, yo, that's crazy that, but yeah, I would love for Beans to do that. You know what I mean? And use his voice. Now, here's the thing, Porsche. You actually said the person's name that I'm about to say. Now, I want to see what y'all think. Brian McKnight from 92 to 96. Especially from that scene on Martin when he sung that shit, Never Felt This Way About Love, to Gina and the John. And, he had the Anytime joint that sounded like Michelle and Diocello's song. And then he had the Back at One. Not saying that he was the biggest shit, but that Brian McKnight was a dope. One lad, like Brian McKnight was a legitimate like solo male singer for a minute in time. Absolutely. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like his name has been. I know he was doing some wild shit. Like he was getting a whole bunch of like social media stuff, like making like some crazy freaky albums, and then he was getting into it with his son. So it just seemed like, I don't know if the clean cutness of Brian McKnight just got played out or whatever, but for a moment in time, I thought Brian McKnight was like that dude. Like, to me, a Brian McKnight slow jam stayed on one of my slow jam tapes or whatever like that. So that's who I got. Vague, who you got up next?
I got The Game. I think when he joined G Unit, he instantly became the most anticipated out of besides 50, obviously. Right. I mean, hip hop heads like Lloyd Banks, but he had more personality than Lloyd Banks. And then what's his name? Damn, why am I forgetting his name? Tony Yayo has personality, but he's not the best MC. And Game kind of like something different that fit the crew. And then he had the singles. And even though I wasn't really a fan of the first album, he had a lot of momentum, and it was like you couldn't avoid him. You thought he was up next, and then the whole GU Not and all that shit, it just all went to shit. And even though he's dropped some really dope albums throughout the years, there's just people who just don't check because they see him as everything else from that talk show that used to be on where he was on, right? Just everything, you know what I'm saying? Beating up niggas in bushes, whatever that shit was back in the days.
That
like
was hilarious too.
Yeah, that was the crazy. That's really some early internet shit if you think about it.
It really was.
Right, but
it's 40 like, Glock. Yeah, it's 40 Glock.
40 Glock, right? Yeah, that was crazy. Just really wouldn't come out the bushes. I didn't understand that. Like,
you scared?
You on camera, but right. But the thing is like nobody cares anymore, right? Like before, when I didn't care, it seemed like everybody cared. Like, yo, you heard the album and this song and Kanye did this, and Dre did that. So for a minute, it felt like, West Coast got one, like, a new cat. And then it just all fizzled with the shenanigans and the shootouts and Hot 97 and just went bad. So
do you think the shenanigans is what hurt him?
Yeah. Because it's the same reason why the same shit is happening to Joe Budden, right? This dude is nice. Like, he's dope. He's mad, dead nice. He should not be retired. But this is the same. This is an internet dude to people, and a podcaster, and the guy who got punched. The father of reality TV on the internet shit. Right. So it's kind of like you become known for something else. Whereas The Game wants us to pay attention to his music, but then he does shit like make a 10-minute Eminem diss that nobody cares about.
It's ridiculous.
He should also stop doing like the roll call attendance of all of hip hop for the last 50 years. Like that would help too, because Game is so talented. I actually really, his flow is dope. His albums are dope. He can definitely make an album. He can definitely carry songs. But then he wastes all this time just shouting out and name calling and name dropping. And I can't even take that album serious anymore. I listened to the documentary and I was like, I just started laughing because I'm like, really? Like, okay, now we're going to go listen to it from the top and just count how many people he names and how many names he repeats. So it's just, it's a different game, no pun intended.
It was real bad, though. Yeah, because I hated it. It was real bad because everything he talked about, he related that shit to an artist. Like, I'm going to the fridge like Eazy-E. And I'm like, why can't you just go to the fridge?
This is funniest.
Like, what did he even talk about a refrigerator to even go to? Like,
right.
Listen to an interview with Game was doing an interview, and the first question was like, what are you working on? And he was like, I swear to you, third word out of the guy's mouth, he's like, like Mike Tyson. I was like, oh, for God's sakes, in an interview, like you can't stay away from name dropping. Oh, man, I can't believe it.
What's funny is Bag and Porsche both hit it on the head. On one end, his shenanigans overtook him. He's a good artist, but his shenanigans make people look at him like a clown to a degree. Like, I can't even take this dude serious. Then on the other end, he wastes so many lines by just name dropping instead of just really rhyming. Because the dude can rap. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If you really just because the documentary, if you take his vocals off, it's probably one of the best, collection of beats.
Yeah, like for me as a producer, I love the album because I don't be paying half the attention to none of the shit he be saying. I'm just listening to the beats or whatever. But even the documentary too was a dope album to me. The documentary too.
Dope. Dallas Advocate was dope to me. I mean, he got albums, man, but I just think he shorted himself as an MC with the name dropping and things of that nature. It's so much, but he can craft the album, man. It's unfortunate that his shenanigans and his name dropping is taken away from his discography, man, because dude can make music.
Yeah.
Let me just add one last thing. I think one way he could have utilized that so people got what he was doing. When you think about the record, what's the record Primo did on the Red album? Born in the Trap.
Born in the Trap.
Like, he's name dropping, but I don't see it the same way because he's telling the story of like Obama had to struggle in this way. He was born in the trap. So it wasn't just about the drug shit. It was kind of about your journey. And
I forgot about the Red album. That was a dope album too.
That was a dope album.
That joint, The City with Kendrick Lamar is crazy, man.
Ridiculous, but dude can't stay on target. Look, even the last album, it wasn't bad, but it was all you heard was the Eminem joint. It was like, oh, hey, this dude.
Yep, that messed it up.
All right, so who you got?
Real quick, on the LAX album, man, the song that he did with Nas, Letter to the King, Game destroyed that song. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was a very dope song on LAX, Letter to the King with Nas, man. So I just wanted to say that. I'm up next?
Yeah, you up.
Man, I'm going to say, man, Prodigy, man, from 1995 to the HNIC. From Infamous to HNIC, man. And I know a lot of people talk about it now on Twitter, but I felt like this back then too. He was, for me, as for East Coast MCs doing on that run, he was one of my favorite rappers. You know what I'm saying? What he did on Infamous is dope. I've been listening to Hell on Earth a lot recently, man, and Prodigy was just in a zone on Hell on Earth, man. Like, as dope as he was on Infamous, he was even doper as an MC on Hell on Earth to me. And of course, the Murder Music and the HNIC album was just dope. It was really like HNIC was like Prodigy's Me Against the World. You know what I'm saying? Because it was him with the Genesis back all the way until you can never feel my pain. You know what I'm saying? Like, he really took you through his life on HNIC, kind of like Pac did on Me Against the World, man. So yeah, man, Prodigy, man, from Infamous to HNIC, for me, one of the best MCs for that period.
Nah, I feel you. I mean, I think it was that damn Summer Jam. I don't feel like P never bounced back from that all the way.
Yeah, and it could be, man. But you know, when he did the damn Return of the Mac with the Alchemist, I thought that shit was dope. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, for me, he just missed something. Like even with Burn, I love Burn, but then when I hear his verse, it just sounds like the same P ain't there. Like
no, he got so mad it felt like he wasn't focused anymore. Like on Mobb Deep album after the Takeover, it was really Havoc after that doing the better rapping. It's like they switched spots almost. Right. Like Havoc was more focused moving forward after the Blueprint.
Right. It just felt like I always said like Nick Anderson, that nigga. Nick Anderson was never the same after them four missed free throws. Never the same. Like prior to that game, Nick Anderson was like a dope ass small forward at that time. Was he playing small? Yeah, he's playing small. Yeah. Never the same after that. And it just seemed like that's what happened with P. P, who you got for your last one?
I'm gonna go with Bone Thugs and Harmony. Yeah, I remember when, God, it was 95, 96. I think Bone Thugs had a bit of a chokehold on the industry. They were like everything. And that was the group that, you know, people always loved, and the songs First of the Month and God, what is, yeah, all just everything off of the Eternal album. Like that album was, everyone loved it. Even non-hip hop fans liked Bone Thugs. Like I remember people who weren't typical, like, you know, they would never listen to hip hop or rap, and then all of a sudden they're pulling out like, you know, Bone Thugs lyrics and they're quoting this and that, and I'm like, really? Like everybody loved Bone Thugs, and they were unique. They had fun songs. They were, man, I remember that Ouija song where they were like loading the guns, and I was like, this is the scariest song I've heard yet. Like up until that point, I was like, I'd never heard something like that before. And, you know, they resonated, and yeah, I think they just had a really unique approach and a unique style and a unique just dynamic in general. And I think people really, and still to this day, like people love them, but they're never really mentioned unless, you know, where someone brings up Bone Thugs and then everyone starts giving them flowers. But yeah, man, Bone Thugs had a bit of a stronghold.
Hey, for a time. Did you ever hear that? Did you ever hear that song on the show soundtrack, Everyday Thing?
I don't remember.
You get a chance later, pull up Bone Thugs Everyday Thing. It's on the show soundtrack, man. Amazing song. But to your point, Bone Thugs, for me, I love Bone Thugs. And that E1999 Eternal, that's a stellar album. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I love Bone Thugs, man. I always have. But yeah, check that song out.
I will.
All right, no doubt. Last joint I got the boy Keith Murray from 94 to 96. First time I heard him on Sermon's Hostile. He's in the video with the razor blade under his tongue. You know what I mean? I thought that was crazy. Most Beautifulest Thing, Get Lifted. I mean, you're talking about all the features, LL's I Shot Ya, the El Nino stuff, even the Mary's My Life, that little interlude with him over the Who Shot Ya beat. Like, you know, Keith was just everywhere, and it was like he could do no wrong. I know that second album, Enigma, really didn't have any oomph on it. I love the remix to the Rhyme, the Uma Dilla remix to the Rhyme. But outside that, I don't really think nothing really off of Enigma really popped. You know, I felt like he was dope on the El Nino joint with Eric and Red, but I just felt like, but from 94 to 96, I felt like Keith was one of them MCs that, you know, niggas was definitely checking for. And then the last person I got for R&B is John Legend. I felt like from like 04 to 06, like John Legend was the nigga. Like Get Lifted to me is a 5 mic album. I love that album. Anywhere, almost damn near any song Kanye was on, John Legend was on. Selfish with Slum Village, I love that joint. Like he was just the voice of hip hop. And then once that second album once again came, he somehow morphed into a Vegas lounge singer, and he ain't never been the same since. Like now it went from, man, I can't wait to hear John Legend, the fuck is John Legend. Like, you know, like, god damn, you again? Do they get you for every goddamn movie soundtrack? Like every time a black person get killed, you got to sing? Like there ain't no other singer. Like you were just everywhere. So, but for a moment in time, John Legend was like the shit, man. You know what I mean? But something went drastically wrong in that boy's career. Because, like I said, I can't stand that nigga now, man. So, Big, who you got up for your last joint?
John Legend has wedding songs in a chokehold for real. Like that. Every
one song he got, yeah,
just not even once. Like every song, people are like, "That's my life. That's for my wedding. That's me. Like that's me and my husband, my boyfriend." Like, okay, John Legend was everywhere.
Yeah, he was everywhere. Veg, who you got up last?
Sorry to say, but Lupe Fiasco. I feel like when he came out, he was like a breath of fresh air. I remember being excited myself. I was like, damn, yeah, why don't I rap about skateboarding? Like,
right.
You know, we knew there were hip hop heads that did that. Some of us did it as kids, and I thought it was a brilliant song, right? Like with the imagery and the catchiness of it, and just for somebody to bring the culture of it, because me, Brooklyn niggas jumping on with they skateboards on the steps and shit. I'm like, these niggas still be doing this dumb shit. Right? Lupe Fiasco gave me a greater appreciation for something I ignored. Cause I'm like, wow, that joint is like a culture in itself. You know what I'm saying? From the way they dress to what they trying to do. And then the album was just different, from what was out. And it wasn't really like, oh, I'm trying to make radio singles. It felt like it was what black music should be if it's hip hop and R&B and like the joint with Jill Scott. Yeah. And even though a lot of Lupe fans really loved the Cool, it was such a about face from what you thought he was on a debut. And even though when he's one of the dopest MCs, one of the nicest dudes, he got some joints that came out, but it's like people didn't care after a while. And I think it ended for him as far as the excitement for his music when he had the label situation. I think he was on Atlantic, and they were trying to get him to do the club joints. You know what I'm saying? And some of them joints was hot, but it wasn't what he wanted to do. Now he gets to do more of what he wants to do, but it's like his star was dimmed as a result because he was just too different on too many albums. You know what I'm saying? Like, just a completely different guy. So, and he might be all of them, right? Like that might be his personality. He might be all of them, but when you in the business of selling records, you made that first impression, and you might turn some people off with all the bar shit. So,
right, no, it makes sense. And so, who you got for your last joint?
I'm gonna run. Give me like 45 seconds. I'm gonna run through a few real quick. Won't take but a second. I promise.
Yeah.
I got Nori from the War Report and the NORE album, man. It was a point where Nori was one of the hottest niggas in the streets. One of the hottest niggas in New York, man. Carried the War Report while Capone was locked up and did the NORE. He became a star. I got
that NORE joint. That shit, man. I remember being in New York up in the top. That shit was being played everywhere. You couldn't go a block without hearing one of them. Without hearing something off that album. Like. Yeah, and that's a good point, Tone, because a lot of people gonna look at Nor like, y'all talking about that nigga who on Drink Champs who always got the let's give it up, like, yeah, but for a minute, that Nor was the man.
Right.
Yep. Jeru the Damager from 1994, 1996 with his Sunrise in the East and Rapping the Math and also with the Gangstar Foundation. He was, as far as underground New York, he was one of them dudes people was comparing to the greats with Brooklyn Took It and all that shit. Jeru was hot, you know what I'm saying? Ja Rule from 1999 to 2001 with Veni Vidi Vici, Pain is Love, Rule 316, whatever. At one point, Ja Rule was the hottest person in hip hop, like him or not. He was. You know what I'm saying? The clubs, Shanti, whatever. Yes. I was in the streets, I was in the clubs. These are facts. Real quick, Melle Mel, 1982, with the message at one point, people looked at Melle Mel as the god of hip hop for a 1 year, 2 year period, and then Mo did Treasury and all that stuff like that. So I just wanted to run it down real quick.
Nah, dope picks. Porsche, you got any honorable mentions?
No.
Okay.
No.
What? No?
I know.
Okay.
I don't.
All right. I had Craig G from the Juice Crew from 88 to 89. For a minute, Craig G, when that Marley Marl's in Control dropped and dropped in Science and all of that, like, it was like, yo, who this? This is Marley new rapper, Craig G. Then he dropped the Kingpin, but a lot of it was like hip hop house. Like he had that joint called Turn This House Into a Home. He just had joints, hip hop. Yeah, he had a joint called "Turn This House Into a Home."
I remember.
And then the chorus was horrible, Vegas. Like, turn this house into a home. Turn this house into fucking horrible. But he also had the dopest duo in Shooting the Gift. Like, he had joints that were, but it was just the bulk of it was hip hop house. Then the second album, That's More Like It, which is more so, like the title went with it, like That's More Like It. I love that album, but again, I think by that time nobody even cared about. He had that.
Marley did that album?
Yeah, Marley did that album, but this is around that time when Marley was doing L's Mama Said Knock You Out. So like, you know, when he, like them boys who was singing on Around the Way Girl, they had a joint called You're Not the One. It was like, girl, you know you're not it. You think you fly, but you're not. You are. So like that was the joy, you know what I mean? But nobody cared about it after that. I got Tash from the Alcoholics for a minute. He had a solo album out on Loud, and I remember me and my man Jace thought this was gonna be the greatest album in the world because we love Tash, and it was not. And then Jay Electronica, like, you know what I mean? I'm just like, at the end of the day, like, I don't know why I remember to this day. I can't remember what I ate for lunch last week, but I can tell you, Exhibit C dropped December 2009. Like, that shit's like stamped in my head. Like, we've been waiting for Jay since 2009. And I mean, I guess the great thing is I still even know people after the him and Jay album that are still like, yo, he's one of the best ever, you know? And I'm like, we still never really got a whole Jay Electronica album, but you know, so yeah, I definitely think Jay was one of those people who, like, when Exhibit C dropped, I don't think you could have told anybody that this nigga was not going to be the next one. Like, this is the next one. Like, and it just never panned out for whatever reason. So, Ben, you got any extras, anything you want to shout out?
Yeah, I do. I had Jay Electronica for the same reasons that you mentioned. I mean, I think with him, especially for me, it was like a build-up because, and Jay, I thought we was friends. We was MySpace friends one time. But like, that's how I learned about him, the MySpace days, and that was because I think I told you before Robert Glasper did Black Radio, him and Most did this joint at Carnegie Hall, and it was really like a freestyle joint. Gil Style Herring came out and all that, but Most performed one of Jay Electronica's song, and he was just a MySpace rapper at that point in time with the Style Wars EP. And I was just like, damn, Most performing like this dude, like nobody in this crowd knows this shit. It's just me, like, oh. And when I heard Exhibit A, I was like, yo, this shit kind of crazy. And then when I heard Exhibit C, I was like, okay, so he got Just Blaze at a time where he was still somewhat relevant, but then he got Puff co-signing him and Nas and all these different people, and I'm like, yeah, he must have an album that we haven't heard yet that they've heard. You know what I'm saying? It just took forever for the shit to come out. Another person like him, Saigon had a lot of momentum going in. That Morning Shots mixtape, oh my god.
There was a time when to me, Saigon and Papoose was supposed to be bringing New York rap back. Like, they were the catalyst of it's coming back to New York. The game is back. Right.
And even though it didn't take him as long to drop as it did Jay Electronica, I just think they missed their window, window of time. And
it's like you said, how you gonna be on HBO Entourage playing yourself? Like, you should have been, that album should have been dropped at the end of Entourage. It should have been like, go buy Saigon's new album right now. Like, nigga, you are literally playing yourself. You are not playing another rapper. Nigga, you are playing Saigon. How is this album not out? But I don't know how any of these people dropped the ball. Why didn't we get a Wu-Tang album when that Mics and Men on Showtime came out? Like, you know what I mean? Why didn't we get something, an EP at the end of every season of that Wu series on Hulu? Like, y'all could have been like, we just gonna do a 5-song EP. Last episode that night we drop. I'm like, shit, I know I'm good at marketing, but goddamn, somebody give me a job then, because there's just too many easy shits that y'all could have done to just get people even. Think about how more hype people would have been on some shit like, at the end of every season we get a new Wu-Tang EP. Like, yo, I can't, like, that would have built so much anticipation up, and I'm like, ain't nobody think about that shit? Like, nobody? Like, what the fuck? Like, how Saigon
even a new song.
Right, like anything, you know? But it's just like I said again, like how Just Blaze is not with HBO, like, yo, we got to get this album done. Like, fuck, I don't care what we got to do. This shit got to be done. So by the end of the season of Entourage, they're doing Psy's album release party. Think of how dope that would have been. Vinny and Automat Psy's album release party. And as soon as this episode goes off, it's available for you to purchase.
Wasn't he still going through that shit with Atlantic Records though, right? Because remember he made that diss song Transatlantic Slave Trade. It was about his deal with Atlantic Records. So I don't know if he had access.
Yeah, maybe it was.
All the songs when Entourage was going on, but he did have that Transatlantic Slave Trade diss song on, and it's still on YouTube. It's a dope song, but he's talking about how they shelved him and held his music because he wasn't making like buffoonery shit.
I mean, it's fucked up because Atlantic, if you want to move units, like Entourage was the hottest shit on TV at that time. So even as we want you to make some bullshit, but you on Entourage, nigga, just put his shit out. Just let that shit go. Right. Like, so again, I don't even understand how you would even pass up that bag that you could have had. My fault, babe. Who else you got with Sai? But that was a good pull with Sai.
I got Kwame. You want to talk about people thinking like, oh, that's it. The look, the music, you know what I'm saying? The cool.
And he produced his own music too.
Produce his own music. It just felt like, oh, this who we listening to now, Kwame. And then it just ended, and Biggie didn't help. You know, he didn't help with that line.
Yo, I would love to know what would Kwame. That's a what if episode. What if Biggie never said, "Your life is played out like Kwame and them fucking polka dots"? Like, what if he did? What if that line bigged up Kwame? Like, yo, I fucking love Kwame. Like, how would Kwame's trajectory? Because I'm one of the few people who love Kwame's second album, A Day in the Life. With Only You, that shit to me was, I love that album. Yeah, I love that album. I'm one of the few people who love that album. And I mean, maybe his style was being played out. I mean, it was, because he was with that Dana Dane, PG-13, right, you know, club. So he was going to eventually phase out. But like you said, babe, that Biggie line just fucking that was like the express train to hell. Like, you was on the local. Get off at 34th Street and get on the express, because you are now on the express train to the end of your career after Big said that. Like, it was a wrap.
I think it was over already. The remember, man.
It was coming to a halt.
Playing and all them anyway. So
yeah, it was coming to a halt. But I just think Big just sped that shit up a little faster.
He did.
Yeah, he is terrible, because we mentioned it because we know he had a moment, right? Like, he was dope. But Big made it seem like don't nobody do that shit no more. Yeah. So now Kwame like, nigga, I can't eat because you saying that. I can't come out with some alternative shit.
He became a dope producer though.
Hey, there you go.
And you follow him on Instagram. He's pretty good at. He's a collector or something like that.
Yeah.
And he does.
But you see, with that tone, he had to change his name. He wasn't producing under Kwame. He was producing under K1. Because that nigga had to change his name. Like, that's how bad Big shitted on him. Like, yo, I can't even say produced by Kino. I got to say produced by Philadelphia A's or some shit. Like, I got to produce under an alias now, because nobody would even want a Kwame be like, nah, nigga, we ain't touching you, bro. Big said you played out, nigga. We don't want no beat. Nah.
That's true.
So it was niggas buying K1 beats, not even knowing Kwame produced this shit. Like,
oh shit, I didn't know he was producing until he did the joint for LL on, I think,
and Will Smith.
He's got a bang on Christina Aguilera's Back to Basic album with Premier. Like, he's got a joint on there that's crazy. You know what I mean? So yeah, he's got some bangers. He's definitely got some bangers, man. You got anybody else, man?
The only other person I had, it's kind of like not their fault, but there was a moment where you had to pay attention. Sean P. There was a moment where Sean Price was making dudes say, yo, I think we need to go back to street rapping, because this nigga bringing the boom bap back.
Yeah, he was.
Before Griselda, there was Sean P. Dolo bringing Boot Camp back, right? Like, because Boot Camp was basically finished as far as what we could see. Sean P, like Ghostface did with the Woo.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Had them on, you know what I'm saying? Had him on his back, and I remember at first, shout out to Odd, because he was always trying to convince me. I was like, I don't want to hear all that broke just rap alive shit. How's that some shit to be proud of, right?
Right.
And till I heard Monkey Bars, and I was like, oh, okay, this is what we doing. Okay, I'm with it. So, unfortunately, he had to pass away, but at the same time, I remember hearing like he was getting offers from like Rockefeller and all that, and it was just off the strength of him. He had a buzz that was all his. So it's crazy.
Yeah. And I did forget one more person, B Real from Cypress. For a minute, I'm not saying B Real was the dopest MC in the world, but Cypress was a dope ass group for a minute. You know what I mean? And then they kind of went more alternative, whatever like that with the rock crowds. But for a minute, Cypress was dope. That's one of the things on me and P's Twitter space. We were saying this one cat told me Cypress only has one good album out, and it was Black Sunday. And I'm like, nah, bro, nah. Like the debut, we just gonna skip over how to just kill a man and the Funky Phil one and all that shit. Like Cypress was dope as hell, and this was weed before Chronic. You know what I mean? Absolutely. Like they were the king. Like if you thought of weed, you thought about B Real. That's the first person who came to mind on that. All right, dope show. Tone, where can they get at you, good brother? What you got cooking up over there?
Hey, Tony the Dome on Twitter, man. All the links to YouTube, the podcast, and the website is all on that, man. Peace.
All right, Vague, what you working on, good brother?
All right, so first of all, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and all of that at Vegas World INC, and you can also check out my weekly podcast, Hip Hop Now Podcast. But currently, I have a interview-based podcast. It's basically all about creatives from all walks of life. Just released the first episode, first of 6 interviews. This interview features a director and cinematographer, Jamar Jones, who was a Morganite. I remember when he was an intern and he didn't know how to do any of this stuff. Now he has all these different affiliations with big companies, and if you look at his work, you like, so he worked for Marvel. I mean, it's fantastic. But it's a great conversation learning about his journey, which is a very, very humble beginning, because a lot of times, Kill, just to bring up like the episode we did with Ill Will, a lot of times people think, because of what happened later, that the early years was some magical shit, right? Like, Will and Nas and did Cormega come by? Like, no, nigga, we was throwing rocks at cars and shit. Like, that's what we did, right? Like, we were doing regular ghetto stuff. But it's dope to talk to people and to discover what drives them creatively, and to point out the thread within their lives. Sometimes they don't even see it as they're talking about it, as what they, what they do today, and that thread and the influences that led to the things they do today. So it's really dope. You check it out, learn something about the man, click on a couple of his videos. If you have opportunities, he's a businessman just like anybody else. But I think people will dig it because the main goal was, even if you're not a person that creates content, it's just to inspire people and people of color in particular. So it's more to come, man. More episodes to come.
Dope. Looking forward to seeing that. I think, to be honest with you, bro, a lot of people need that. You know what I mean? So just for people watching, I think it's something to really tap into, because I know sometimes people may be like, well, I don't care about cinematography, or I don't care about what this person does. But I think the biggest thing is, what I hear is just tapping into people creatively, and what inspires them. And I think all of us need some type of inspiration in our life. So just because you're not into cinematography, his story may have something that can inspire you. Because as creators, you have to constantly put gas in your tank again. Like I tell people, the gas you put in your car on Monday, that shit ain't gonna last in 2 weeks. It may not last in a week. You gotta constantly refill your fuel tank. And I think as creators, we have to constantly refuel our fuel tank. And the bad part is that at our age, a lot of us don't get to see each other. I haven't seen Vegas in person in probably 3-4 years now since the pandemic. So, you don't get to, you may not get a chance to be around creatives. And I know, Veg, for me at Morgan, I was probably my most creative because I'm literally around people every day who have some type of hustle going on, and I'm seeing your hustle, so that motivates me to hustle. But you get married, you have kids, you're around fucking soccer, you're taking your kids to football practice and dance rehearsal, and you're around all these soccer moms and dads. These niggas ain't doing shit, so then you start to slow down. So you need something to put in your gas tank. So I just challenge people, don't let who the guest is, or I'm not into acting, or I'm not into that. Just the bigger picture is what inspires creatives. So if you are creative, I think this is something you should tap into to become inspired by that. P, where can they get at you?
On Twitter at Cherchez La Porsche.
All right, and y'all already know it's with me, Kill 889, Twitter, IG. I will check y'all next week, good peoples.